Okay. Eric, let me know when we're in a good spot with the attendees and we'll get started.
Okay, looks like there's 19 people.
All right. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for the October webinar series for the New York Association on Independent Living, or NIAL. And for the interpreters, that is NYAIL. I am Blaise Bryant, Communications Specialist for the association, as we are going to learn about the ways people with disabilities who are job seekers can access assistive technology through the TRAID, TRAID, or the Technology Related Assistance for Individuals with Disabilities program. Before I turn it over to our presenters, a couple of quick housekeeping things. The webinar is being recorded and will be made available um, later in the week, which, since it's Thursday, that's code for tomorrow. Um, Also, too, the chat is disabled for attendees. This is a screen reader accommodation. You can put any questions you have in the Q&A box, or if there is a tech issue that you're experiencing, let us know. There will be time for questions at the end. And again, you can either put your questions in the Q&A box, or if you want to ask your question, and we'll save about the last 10, 15 minutes for that, um, we will, you can raise your hand and I will unmute you. If you are a screen reader user, it's Alt key plus the Y key, Alt Y or Command Y, or if you're on the phone, it is *9. So, with all of that out of the way, I am going to turn things over to the people that are bringing us here today. Melinda Dolezal, who is the TRAID Director for New York State through the Empire Justice Center. Melinda, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It was wonderful. I've known Blaise for a little bit. I bumped into him at the Dream event a couple of weeks ago, and really happy to be meeting with you all on this lovely Thursday afternoon.
Absolutely. Always great to
Yeah.
run into you. And April Diffee, who is the trade manager at the Southern Adirondack Independent Living Center, or SAIL. Thank you so much, April.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm going to turn things over to both of you.
Thank you, Blaise. And thank you all again. For those of you on the call, I am about 5'9". I have long dark hair. I have black glasses on, a really high forehead, more of a 5 head. My last name is like Bob Dole plus that's Zal, folks. And as Blaise knows, it's Czech for lazy. So if you reach out to try and find that lazy girl that was on this presentation, hopefully somebody will be able to direct you to the right place. So we are excited to talk to you guys about the TRAID program, what we do, but more importantly, how assistive technology might be, something to explore if you're interested in employment opportunities that might require some type of accommodation, or if you or a family member or whoever um, has never tried assistive technology and you're not quite sure what it is or how it might be able to help you. So without further ado, we're going to go over a little bit about, what is assistive technology? Some of you may use it, you may be familiar with it, or this might be something, that you're learning about, either for the first time or having a refresher on. We're going to talk about some examples of AT in employment, not the only examples out there, but certainly, hopefully some that might have some applicability. Some accommodations and accessibility and what that might look like, our services at TRAID and what we can offer to people all across New York State, and then just some resources that, hopefully will be helpful for, once you leave this webinar. So what is assistive technology? It's a huge, broad spectrum of things that, we could talk for days and days about examples about what it is and what it can do. but it is any item, product, or piece of equipment that can be used to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capabilities of individuals with disabilities. Devices can be low tech, mid tech, high tech. It runs, the gambit from, we have some examples in the next few slides, but as low tech as a grip on a pencil, for somebody that might need that, in order to get, like what it says, a good grip to write, or as high tech as, eye gaze technology, or technology that somebody can use their pupil in order to access their computer. So within that spectrum, are thousands, if not millions, of different options. So within the AT world and what we do at TRAID, we have 10 categories of assistive technology. So the items that you will see if you visit a TRAID center or contact a TRAID staff fall into these categories. So mobility, seating, and positioning, things like walkers, wheelchairs, things to get up and move around and access home and community. Vision and hearing, kind of self-explanatory, magnifiers, things that can, change how, things look with, contrast for, things like a keyboard. Hearing devices, things like pocket talkers, amplifiers, FM systems, speech communications, items that can help somebody, communicate their wants and needs if they're non-speaking. Vehicle mods and transportation might be something like a swivel seat or a removable handle on a door. We don't do permanent modifications to, we don't do bathroom remodels and stuff like that, but we can probably get you resources to help you navigate that with potentially another agency. Daily living, everything from eating devices, things to help you get dressed, take a shower, you name it. Recreation, sports, and leisure, something we really want people to keep in the back of their mind, because regardless of whether you have a disability or wherever you are in life, we work sometimes 8 hours, 5, 6, 7, however long. We sleep for, if you're me, 4 hours if you're lucky. Maybe 8 hours if you're more lucky. But in that other 8 hours or however long, we still want to, watch Netflix, knit, paint, be on a sports team. And those are just as important in many ways. Learning, cognition, and development, things to go to school, to go to college, to learn new skills, computers and related, things like keyboards, mice and related, and environmental modifications. So maybe door alarms, smart home technology, things like that. But again, very quick overview of these 10 categories that cover pretty much every part of a person's day-to-day life. So we just have some examples. If you've never seen a wheelchair, or if you've never, if you're not sure the different types, you might at a TRAID center see things like a transport chair or a manual wheelchair. Occasionally we'll have things like scooters or power chairs. We have sit-to-stands, gait trainers, like the device on the right, for different heights, different builds. We work with people from, we say, rocking or from cradle to rocking chair. So every part in a person's life. Education, which is a huge category for us. We have a lot of things like tablets, like the iPad that you see there on the left. An iPad is great because you can use it for a billion different purposes. Yes, you can play Minecraft, but you can also use it for communication. You can use it for note keeping. You can use it for, organization, all different things. On the right is a C pen, which is used to read out words on a page. You can, if you're on this image, it looks like a large pen that's maybe a little bit wider than a typical, device. But what it does is as you draw it across, it'll read out what's there. So it could be great for somebody that might, not be able to see small text, or maybe if they have dyslexia. So 2 examples, but then there's a billion other things, as I've said. The top image is a magnifier. That is something that's a little bit larger that would maybe be on a desktop, but we do have smaller ones. I describe them as like the Sherlock Holmes magnifiers. The middle top picture is a lift to help somebody get up out of bed that can be moved, onto a mattress fairly easily compared to a full hospital bed. Top right is a self-mixing mixer. Something like this you can get on Amazon. It goes into a bowl, maybe not on the open heat like you see here, but it can help to stir up something that's being mixed to make a meal. Bottom left is a liftware spoon. That is a self-balancing spoon if somebody has tremors, or if they maybe were diagnosed with Parkinson's. It helps for food from spilling. Next to that is a sock aid to help somebody to get dressed who might not be able to bend over or have a limited range of motion. Next to that are symbols that one of our trade centers 3D printed to use for communication, the different colors and shapes. And it's a little difficult to see, but there's Braille on there to help aid in communication. And all the way on the right is an amplified alarm clock. So it's extra loud for somebody that might be hard of hearing. And that disc that you can maybe see next to it, that little gray disc, goes under somebody's pillow to help as kind of an impromptu bed shaker, should they need that assistance. So these are all examples that, people can use in their day-to-day life, if they're exploring employment or if they just are, for whatever reason. Maybe they're going to college, maybe it's just something that they're working on. But AT has a huge part, it can have a huge part in somebody's life if they are searching for employment. There are things designed specifically for different fields, different work, and different levels in terms of low tech to high tech. So AT can really help people navigate and be successful in different workplace settings. So we have a couple of examples, and just like the previous slides, some images just to kind of help, give more of a picture of what the options are. So for example, an off-road mobility device for somebody that's working outside or has to work outside in some circumstances, computer equipment for vision or with cognitive needs, things like that. And, we try to really let people know that, yes, we're out here, but not only TRAID, but just the idea of assistive technology in general. Not everybody explores it, when they're in high school, getting ready to transition, or maybe they, never really thought about it. Their team never really thought about it. But as they're getting older, it's something that might be a benefit. And a lot of times people will come to us and say, well, I don't really know, what I need, but I think I need something for, tying my shoes or making food. We can help with that because our staff at TRAID, that's what our job is to kind of take that idea that somebody is bringing to us and putting a potential solution with it. So there's also ways of making, tools and making, things at work more accessible, to modify what they are, to make them more customized to the needs of the person. Because we really, with anything in this world, we want to look at it from a person-centered perspective. If you come to a trade center and you have, maybe a particular need that somebody else might have, there's still going to be variation, whether or not somebody is more experienced with smart technology, tablets, or maybe they prefer more low-tech options. Maybe they're a little older and they've used something before and they want to stick with that. But we can also add things to devices that are already there, grips for hammers, wrenches, and screwdrivers, things like that. And we can also customize things using our 3D printing. Many of our trade centers are 3D printing. They have 3D printers either in their offices or they've let universities and 3D printing work groups borrow them to be able to print things. So it's opened up a new world for us to make these devices even more person-centered, depending on what the device is. So just like with those other slides, we have a couple of examples. Traditionally, people might say like, oh, I want an office job. That's kind of the end all be all, but not everybody wants to work in an office. Some people want to work with their hands. Some people want to be chefs. Some people want to be mechanics. Some people want to be gardeners. And we want to make sure to the best of our ability that those options are explored when it comes to AT. So in this slide, we have a broomstick with a bent handle that might be more ergonomically beneficial for somebody. That top, top to the left-ish, I guess that's not really great directions, metal disc that you see is actually a magnetized bowl that can capture, or that it can hold nuts and bolts. If somebody's working, in a garage or as a mechanic, these are devices that aren't technically, maybe considered for many people assistive technology, but they can still function as that. So next to that are some adaptive gardening tools. Many of our trade centers have these readily available that have different range of motion within the grips so that people can be comfortable when they're gardening, either for fun or, potentially if that's what they want to do for a career. On the bottom is an off-road wheelchair that is a motorized wheelchair. There are non-motorized versions of this that have more, like thicker tires. They have almost like bike tires that can help navigate rough terrain. And all the way on the right is actually, if we were in person, I would then be calling and making, people feel a little awkward to say, guess what this device is? But this, I won't do that to you. This is a device to help somebody to plant seeds if they're not able to, maybe they've had a back injury or it's difficult for them to sit down and stand up quickly. This is a device that sticks into the ground. And once you pull the lever, it will release seeds to be able to plant you move along to the next, spot, to the next, to the next. So things like that can make a huge difference. And then, some people don't want to work in an office, and some people that is completely what they want to do. And this is some of the things that you might see at a trade center should you go there, some things that you might be offered. So one of the things on that top left are high contrast keyboards. So for some people, obviously high contrast can be beneficial, but also larger text. Some people respond better to, black on yellow or yellow on black. So the option to have that is important to be able to offer a different solution. And then the other four devices here are actually all similar in terms of their function, but they look very different and they'll operate very different depending on the person. So these are all computer mice. This top one is a switch operated computer mouse. So it basically, each of these buttons, it has 5 buttons, 2 blue, 2 yellow, and 1 red. Each one is basically not programmed, but is connected in a way that, whoever is using the computer, instead of having to manipulate a mouse, presses these buttons, for different, what you would have on a traditional mouse, the functions there, but it's switch operated. Bottom left is an ergonomic vertical mouse, great for somebody that might have, pain in their wrist or carpal tunnel. It's more ergonomic. Some people love them. Some people want nothing to do with them. Next to that is a trackball mouse. A lot of these things you can get in Best Buy and Walmart. This one, somebody would operate with the tips of their fingers, more so than clicking with a traditional mouse. And the final item is a pen mouse. So operates very much the same, but the person might have a different need or preference that comes to us needing these devices. So these are things that you might see at a trade center or might be able to get information at, should you or whoever, family member, parent, go and ask to see these options. And we're not the only places that you can see things like this. Many of the career one-stops have a lot of assistive technology available to them. They have things like JAWS. They have high contrast peripherals for computers there as well. And there are other loan closets across New York. So we're not the only game in town, but I'm a little biased. And obviously I'm going to say, we're pretty cool. And then, as I said, we 3D print a lot of things, and we can also make them more accessible depending on what they are, or if people's needs change. Maybe they never needed a device like some of these, or maybe they have them already. So, for example, mallet or wrench or, pruning shears. But it's possible to add grips to them. Like you can, if you aren't able to actually see the picture in the middle, to be able to add, that extra security to the handles so that they don't fall as easily can make a big difference. So there's blue, I'm not sure if these are 3D printed handles or if they're rubberized, but they've been added to add that extra grip strength. Top left picture is a 3D printed grip on a pencil. So if somebody isn't able to, if they have limited fine motor skills, this could help them still be able to write if they had that particular need. Bottom left is a key holder. So your house key would go into there. It has a larger grip on it so that somebody can, be able to let themselves in and out of their home or their office or whatever, and have a better hold on that key. And then finally, all the way on the right are just some extra grips for a broom and dustpan to be able to hold them and have a good grip. So we don't have images of some software applications, but there's a ton of things, built into a lot of computers that are constantly evolving and constantly changing. There's also apps, alarms, and communication devices that, are available either through licenses, either purchased, by somebody, to have for them to use personally, or to, potentially come to TRAID to try out these apps to see what's going to work for them. Speech to text is a huge one. People get, sometimes a little worried when, the assistive technology world can seem overwhelming. Like, oh, there's so many options. How do I know what, A lot of times we have just readily available to us assistive technology. We don't think about it. Speech to text and text to speech are two that a lot of people use and don't even realize that they're using it, and can qualify as AT. There's a lot of apps that change constantly. The Remind Me app and Alarmed are two that I've been recommended in terms of timekeeping and alarms. There's new ones that people might respond more to. Google Keep and Google Docs, and within your own computer, the accessibility features, whether you're an iOS user or if you use Windows, there's a lot of things built in that we don't have time necessarily to go over to today, but we're happy to answer any questions, if people have them about ways to make your your computer work for you better, more or less. And so just a couple of examples on the left, we do have laptops through TRAID, and as I said, iPads. And I do want to emphasize this, we are not the free iPad people. Once in a while, that kind of pops up and people think like, oh, we can just go to TRAID and have a free thing forever. We cannot do that, unfortunately, but we're just like a library, except in books. We have all of the items, depending on where you go, available for people to try out and to borrow. I do want to say each trade center is unique. Depending on the region, it might have devices that you would see in one place and not necessarily the other. The big example is beach wheelchairs. Long Island, Capital District have them because we've got Lake George, we've got, Long Island, you've got tons of beaches. You're not necessarily going to see them in the North Country, but the North Country might have things that they don't have. So these two images here, I think on the left was supposed to be zoom text, which is a magnifier to make images on your screen larger and more accessible. And then JAWS on the right, and of course my brain is melting. It is a software that, it's a screen reader that's not reading what's on your screen verbatim. It is reading what is behind it, behind the scenes. So as you can see here, it's basically converting digital text into synthesized speech. So if you were to look at this particular slide, a screen reader, if there was other images on here, or if there was other things that might be distracting, a screen reader might not know what to read back to somebody that's using it. So it's, when people are making PowerPoints or making other things or websites, it's important to kind of keep in the back of your mind, like, okay, let's make sure that this is accessible. And I mean, there's things I miss too. I'm not perfect, but the important thing is to make sure that, to the best of our ability, we're doing that. So, a screen reader can technically read what's on a screen. It is also interacting with the code. Sometimes, it's unfortunate if you see kind of outtakes or bloopers of, not bloopers, but, a screen reader that'll go through something that's not accessible, it'll be like gobbledygook. So as I said, if we don't have something, like a device with JAWS readily on it, we can do our best to refer people to maybe a Career One Stop or show another resource where they can try that out if they've never tried it or if their needs have changed and it's something they want to explore. So accommodations and accessibility, ensuring that work sites are accessible is everybody's responsibility when it comes to exploring employment. It really ties into universal design and it's benefiting everybody. And I know for many of you on this call, this is not news to you. This isn't some earth-shattering thing. Technology might be able to help with some of the things that people are interested in. It might not. So I don't have a slide on here, but there's another great resource, the Job Accommodation Network, or JAN. They recently did a webinar where they talked about options for accommodation related to, if somebody needs to monitor certain parts of their healthcare, maybe it is monitoring, what is their pulse and their heartbeat, what is their, if you think like glucose, if somebody is diabetic, there are, with glucose and tradition, more medical, but for maybe something like monitoring, your pulse or your heartbeat, a smartwatch may be a good option for that, or for something that can hook onto somebody's wrist to be able to keep track of that for whatever the purpose is that they're monitoring that, might be an accommodation that somebody could explore. So ICT, us at TRAID, this is in the back of our minds as much as possible to ensure that people have equivalent access to information, regardless of whether you're using JAWS, whether you're using Zoom text or a captioning device, whatever that happens to be. So for many of you, this again might not be, earth-shattering news, but best practice is to, when creating internal documents, whether it is a poster or a PowerPoint or whatever it is, to test manually and using automated methods. So using accessibility checkers, I don't use a screen reader personally, but I do my best to run them through NVDA, which is another option in addition to JAWS, just to see how is it picking up things. And if it does sound like gobbledygook, how can we change that to make it so that it's not just word salad? So some examples of some accessibility areas, that people can explore when they're trying to make things accessible are all of the things here: contrast, text size, the use of color. You don't want to have like white text on a yellow backdrop because then it's just going to look like nothing. Keyboard accessibility, seizure concerns, and captioning. So within all of these things, assistive technology can tie to really to all of them. And if somebody is, interested in employment opportunities and these are concerns, there are potential ways that we can offer AT, that can meet these needs. And so it might be, with contrast, maybe those high contrast keyboards can help. Keyboard accessibility, maybe somebody needs to try out that switch operated mouse, or, there are keyboards that are, sectioned off. They're in different places, or they have, different elevations depending on the need. So just some other examples. And just a visual example of high contrast being good or being bad. The one on the left, if you are able to see it, it probably isn't going to look as painful as the one on the right with the green and the red. It bothers me at least, and I hate looking at it, so I'm going to skip it. So testing websites, we want to make sure that we're doing that, and to make sure that, organizations are aware of these things, that they have equal access, and that people are able to navigate them or navigate whatever the document is without getting that headache. I'm going to do it again with that bad contrast that drives me nuts. So we've gone over, very quick examples of what assistive technology is, the ways that, different devices can help with employment. And if somebody is starting a job for the first time, or if they're just starting the job process, maybe they're transitioning out of high school or they're about to leave college and enter the workforce, and accommodations are going to be changing from what they had, at their university or their college, that's a perfect time to start, exploring. The sooner, the better. And so here's what we do at TRAID. Our goal is to promote independence in the lives of people with disabilities of all ages using assistive technology. And we do this through education, employment, community living. So basically every single part of a person's day-to-day life, whether they are waking up in the morning, making breakfast, getting ready to go to work or to school, getting home, they want to play bocce ball, they want to, have dinner with their family or by themselves or go to bed. And we do work with people of all ages and all needs across New York. It's not one particular group. It's not, particular age. It's everybody. So we are a federal program that is like, oh, smashed my elbow on desks over here, administered by the Administration for Community Living. We love them. So far, they love us. And we also are very lucky to work with 3 other agencies within New York, 2 within the Department of Health and 1 within the State Education Department. So the first is early intervention. So we work with the really little guys, birth to 3, working on communication, mobility, sensory needs, you name it. Access VR, we do work with them to have devices available in our inventories specifically geared towards education and employment. And then finally, money follows the person. We have equipment to help people stay independent at home rather than having to go into a nursing home, and then also helping people get out of nursing homes to their own, whether it's living with family or living independently in the community. So who can utilize TRAID? Anybody can. You do not have to be involved with what we call a state oversight agency. Person does not need Medicaid. They do not need private insurance. They do not need really, nothing. There's no billing that we do. We do require certain documentation for certain pieces of equipment because we do have sometimes very specialized items that we want to make sure that people are using properly because we don't want to do more harm than good. So for example, somebody that wants to try a communication device like Tobii, Tobii Dynavox, it's best for them to be working with like a speech language pathologist because they're really the experts in that, and they're going to know the needs on a clinical level. Not that that's everything, but we also don't want somebody using a device and then being, having them, further back because it didn't work and they're resistant to it. It's a long story. But most devices, if somebody needs just like a cane, or if they want to try something, like most of the time we can work with them to be able to loan it that same day or whenever their appointment is. It's just the really high tech things. We want to make sure that it's the right device. And disability could be long or short term. The examples I have here are a knee walker, for a broken leg, or maybe somebody has sprained something, or they're just coming out from surgery. They've been discharged and they just need something for a few weeks. Or maybe it is a communication for someone who is non-speaking or nonverbal. It doesn't matter the time frame. We're still here for that person. So there are 12 regional TRAID centers across New York. This map has, the territories of where each are. And so they cover the major cities usually in that region. So New York City, Westchester, Capital District, North Country, Utica, Syracuse, Buffalo, Rochester, Binghamton, you name it. And if it is, if somebody is located within a territory, so if up in the North Country, St. Lawrence County, Herkimer, and Hamilton, there might be distance in between a trade center, but our staff do their best to be able to travel to meet, the person either halfway or, where they can. We do want to emphasize, though, that our staff are very busy. So if it is, if you are interested in meeting them outside of the office, it might take, a bit to figure out schedules, but our staff usually are able to do their best to meet the needs of whoever the person is. So we just had another trade center that for some reason decided that it wanted to hop in there, but our amazing representative today is April Diffee, who is from Sale up in Queensbury, but they do cover Warren County all the way down to Columbia County and out to Schoharie. So it's a big region. They do have a satellite site at the Wilton Mall. So if you are in the Capital District, just know that it's a big region, but the staff there are absolutely amazing. And they're very active in the community if you've seen them or if you've ever met with them for any of the other services that they do. So all of the 12 trade centers offer the same services. What we're best known for is our device loans. Like I said earlier, just like a library, people can, contact their local trade center to explore options for all of those things that I mentioned: mobility and seating, computers, learning and cognition, hearing, vision, you name it. Once you meet with our staff or, kind of go over the specifics, it's possible to usually borrow a device for several weeks, as it says, to see if it works as a short-term accommodation. We've had people come to New York from out of town. Maybe it's a graduation for a grandchild or for a conference, and they need something. We're usually able to loan something, for just a couple of days, a couple of weeks, and then we take it back, we clean it, we make sure that it is in good working order, and then loan it out again. We do device demonstrations or a compare and contrast. So as I said, the world of AT is huge. We want people to know what's out there and to have a decision in what they pick. We want to be person-centered. So we'll offer 2 to 3, maybe a little bit more options for somebody to try out. Maybe if it's different size wheelchairs, they can move around our offices to see what's comfortable, what feels good, or what they respond to. If they're not sure, that's where you can borrow them. But we want people to know what their options are. We also occasionally are able to donate devices into the community. Usually it's durable medical equipment, but not exclusively. We'll get into that a little bit more in a second. We also do trainings, just like we're doing with you amazing people this afternoon. But we also do a variety of topics on everything from, more specific details on accessibility, assistive technology for a person's plan, whether it's an individualized education plan, like a child's plan, funding options, specific AT devices, you name it. We have our staff all across New York that we are happy to meet virtually, and sometimes, depending on where you are, we can meet in person. Public awareness, we do a lot of tabling events. You might see us out at various, state fairs. I know Sale has done county fairs in their region. We do a lot of fun stuff to bring awareness to the program. A lot of our programs are on social media. So if you have an event and you want somebody from TRAID to be there, depending on availability, we will happily be there bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And we do technical assistance. So people will come to us and say, we want to make our building more accessible. We want to make our curriculum for our students more accessible. How do we do that? So we'll work with them to offer suggestions, provide feedback, and offer ways that they could explore. We've had teachers and schools come to us and say, we need to help our teachers be more familiar with accessibility features. We've done that. We have helped make state park trailways a little bit more accessible. We have worked with, many different organizations to, really think outside the box and make their sites, make their buildings, make their websites, as accessible and as available as possible for everyone. So just some quick things to know. We do have tons of things available in our inventories, but we are not able to purchase things for people to keep. It's just not what we're able to do. We've had people come to us and need very customized devices. We're unable to do that because the things that we have, we need to have them be as available to as many people as possible. But we do have a lot of variety. I will highlight that. We do not provide financial assistance, so we're not able to provide grants or loans. We can point you in the right direction, though. Loans for our devices, and it does get tricky. People hear loan and they think financial, and we do loans, and it's tricky. So different type of loan. Our loans for borrowing devices are typically 60 days or less. So we really, we want to be able to have devices come back so that we can loan them out again. But we know things change. You know, if somebody borrows something and they're waiting for insurance, who knows, there might be a delay. We just ask that people contact us, explain, you know, why the delay is happening, ballpark of when they need it, and we can usually extend the loan. We just need to know what's going on. Because if we don't know what's going on, then it might hold up the device for the next person. We do end up with waiting lists sometimes, but we try our best to avoid that. So that's why we really emphasize, please come to us if you need something, but just let us know if you need it for longer. We do accept donated equipment in decent condition. We do have people donate very old, very scary, very rusty things. But we do want to, you know, if it's equipment that is in good condition or decent condition and we can fix it up, clean it up, we can then donate it out either permanently to somebody that needs it, just give it to them, or add it to our inventory to supplement devices that we already have. So we do have some resources because as much as we do, we know that we are a big piece to an even bigger puzzle of things that are out there in New York and beyond. So employment resources to get to work, you know, I'm sure many people are familiar with what that is, but Agribility, maybe you aren't familiar with. Agribility, for what we do with day-to-day assistive technology, Agribility does with farm and agriculture. So they have resources and technology for farm workers, for agricultural workers, and the things they have are, I can't emphasize how cool they are. It's larger technology than we're usually able to have in our inventories, and it's a lot more specialized items that you would see to be able to do those types of jobs. So they're a great resource, one that I would definitely recommend. This PowerPoint will be, you know, is certainly able to be shared. So these links, I know it's, I can't really, you know, they're difficult to check out with just the link form, but feel free to check them out after. Jan, as I mentioned, the Job Accommodation Network has 1.5 billion resources on everything from accommodations, you know, general accommodations that may not involve assistive technology to, you know, advocacy, the AT world and beyond. This specific link, I think, goes to the AT side of what they do. Other supports, the National Disability Institute. If you've ever heard of ABLE accounts or ABLE loans, the National Disability Institute or NDI, same organization, tons of great resources. Access VR all the way on the bottom. If you haven't heard of Access VR, maybe you heard of them as VESID 20,000 years ago, but it's the same thing. They will pay for assistive technology. There is a process in order to get approved. Somebody has to have an open case with them. They have to have gone through the qualifying, you know, criteria. There's a lot of, you know, there's different things that somebody needs to meet in order to qualify, but it is possible. I don't want to say what those specific criteria are, but if you are curious, you know, Access VR hopefully would be able to point you in the right direction. But it is possible to have things paid for, you know, assistive technology wise for, you know, for employment and for some, depending on what you're going to school for and in what type of school. And then some other ones, your local trade center. As I said, we love, you know, meeting new people and hearing what is needed in the community, because how we purchase our devices comes from, you know, it's not just us sitting there twiddling our fingers. It's hearing from community members. It's hearing from Access VR counselors, from teachers, from parents. That's how we know what the demand is, because we don't want our technology just sitting there, not doing anything, collecting dust. The AT3 Center, which is our technical assistance kind of agency that helps us to know what's the newest, latest, greatest stuff out there. Communities of practice, tons of great resources. They have a big database of devices that are out there that you could explore, and that includes apps. It includes, you know, computer technology, and then other types of AT as well. And finally, our besties at Georgia Tech Tools for Life. I didn't mention, but there's 56 AT programs in the country. We're just one of the 56. There is a program, if you are on vacation in Montana, you would go to Montech. If you were in Tennessee, it's TTAP. If you were in California, it's Ability Tools, I think. So we all have different names, but we do the same thing. And Georgia Tech Tools for Life are the Georgia AT wing of the AT Act, and they have a fantastic website as well at Georgia Tech, or Georgia Tech Tools for Life.gatech, very long website that you see down there. So they're a fantastic organization. In addition to the other 55, and I'm a little biased because New York were pretty amazing, as I said. But yeah, so that's myself, and then that's April's contact there. April is, as I said, the main staff at SAIL, but because SAIL is an independent living center, they have fantastic resources in-house. They have benefits advisors, they have, you name it. I mean, any independent living center, as I'm sure many of you are aware, has lots of in-house supports that might be able to refer you to other resources, either at their center or in the rest of the community. 5 of our trade centers are independent living centers, and we're lucky enough that SAIL is one of them. So I know I talk kind of fast sometimes. I apologize. I wasn't able to see the Q&A if anything came through. But that is what I had for you lovely people today, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Oh, there we go. It helps if you lower the microphone on your headset, Blaze. Um, it was pointing up at the ceiling.
No
Um,
problem.
nothing in the nothing is in the Q&A, but feel free to put any of your questions and um, whether it's anything Melinda just touched on, or if you have any questions for April about SAIL. You did not hear April as much because she's dealing with a little bit of a cold, so she's
That time of year,
doing
it's going around.
a little vocal conservation, which totally understand. Um, so I mean, I guess what I'll do here in the hopes of um, getting questions going here is, do all of the trade centers throughout the state have the same tech, generally speaking?
Most of them have very similar devices. If you were to go to Stick out in the Southern Tier Independent Center, they have, I mean, every trade center has mobility devices like rollators, walkers, and wheelchairs. Um, Most of the, I mean, it's a hot ticket item, but we do have a lot of shower benches, kind of those daily living devices, because we work with Access VR and the Department of Health for EI and Money Follows the Person. We do have computers and laptops and devices for work, note-taking devices at all of the trade centers. But for more specific things, it depends on the trade center. Occasionally, we'll have a request across borders from region to region. And sometimes we are able to loan, if there's no wait list, from one region to another at the discretion of the trade staff that's loaning. So that does happen sometimes.
Ah, I mean that's pretty cool. And how have, and this is a question for both of you. How have you seen in terms of direct impact with uh, disabled job seekers, or I should say job seekers with disabilities, um, accessing the equipment they need to get the job that they're looking for and ultimately getting that job?
Do you have any? I have some examples, April, but you're the one on the ground level that really sees the good stories.
I don't have any specific examples. We do work very close with Access VR, as well as our community college, which is right around the corner. They actually have some assisted devices there to help the college kids, that are our items that, are on loan at the college, to kind of help with those aspects. Excuse me. But yes, we do have people that have been successful as far as coming and borrowing a piece of equipment. It might not have been right for them. So we may have to play around with 2 or 3 different items in order to just get it right. But for sure, we absolutely help in that field.
Some other examples that I've seen from other regions. We had in the Southern Tier, we had a lady that was working a job where she needed to see small numbers and needed to record things, and she was having a difficult time, being able to see them easily. So she borrowed I don't know if it was a C-pen or something similar from the local trade center to be able to accomplish that. And it did work very well for her. We've had other cases. We had one of my favorites is we had a high school student who was having a really hard time getting up in the morning. They've tried everything, and the trade center invested in it looked like a pillow that you would just have, like a traditional pillow, but it was like it would shake really, like kind of like a bed shaker that you see, that little disc that we had the example picture, but this was like industrial, and he could not ignore that. And so that was what helped him get up to be able to get to school on time. But we've had other people, it might not be a traditional, quote unquote, job related AT device. Maybe they just needed something to help them be stable on their feet at work to be able to borrow something. So each case is different. We've had people come to trade and they've said they're, as children, not, working age, but their first word or first, clear word. April has a great one from a little guy that using a trade device, spoke very clearly for maybe the first time, if not one of the first times.
Love it. We do have a question from Shahara, and if I'm mispronouncing that, please forgive me, as I'm reading by ear with the screen reader here. The question, though, is how long can you borrow something for? And I believe you touched on this earlier, but it's always good to make the point again.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we aim for between 30 to 60 days to loan a device. So that's about 2 months. And that's really for our purposes is to like see if it's going to work for someone, or if it's a short-term accommodation. We are able to sometimes loan out for longer. It depends on the device and the availability of the device. So, if there's a huge demand for that, it might impact, whether a device can be extended in terms of the loan, but that's our ideal. And like I said, there are times when somebody, if we have older devices that aren't needed anymore, or if somebody donates something to us that, might be a little older, then our trade centers many times can, provide that device for somebody to keep. But it depends on what it is. April, I don't know if I'm oversimplifying it or if that's what it looks like for you guys.
No, that's exactly what it is. It's
Yeah.
usually a 30 to 60 day loan. I do tell people if they need it longer, they can certainly give us a call based on, if we have a wait list or somebody else looking to borrow that piece of equipment.
Great. Now we have, let's see. If you loan out a piece of equipment to someone, can you provide information on where they can purchase it?
Yeah, many times. So there are a lot of places that could potentially fund the AT device if somebody is enrolled in a waiver. So if they're in the home and community-based services waiver, depending on the Medicaid waiver, depending on, kind of where somebody is, there's the potential that it could be funded. There are also low interest loans in New York, and those are the cash loans, not the loans that we do, that can pay for assistive technology specifically. One is through the Equipment Loan Fund, through the Office of Children and Family Services. They will purchase devices. There is an application process. It's not just a straight, I need this, give me cash. That will pay for devices up to a certain amount with a low interest rate, and the other is through the National Disability Institute's ABLE loan program. But with April, her program being at an independent living center and many of the others either being in an ILC or having contact with an ILC, those are great places to start as well to potentially be able to pay for those devices.
Yes, we have, being an ILC, we do have a child advocate who can work with the individual and the insurance companies to see what's needed in order to get something paid through the insurance. A good example is, mobility devices will be covered every 5 years. So if someone's coming in looking for a wheeled walker and they want to put it through the insurance company, I often tell them, we have 1,000 wheeled walkers. Why don't you borrow one from us and save that insurance claim for that bigger piece of equipment that you may need within the next 5 years?
Yep, every time I go to CVS and I see like the canes and the walkers that are like more and more expensive as time goes by, and I think like we have so many at our trade centers that are just sitting there. I mean, Sale alone had like the wall of walkers at one point and the wall of canes, which is exactly what you think it might be, is an entire wall just filled with those items. So, yes, think of us if that's ever a situation that you are in or your parents are in or whoever is in.
For sure. We got a question asking if there is a trade center in New York City.
There very much is. So that particular trade center, I'm going to put their website in the chat. I'm just going to pull it up really quick, is TechWorks. So they are part of Adapt Community Network. They are based out of Brooklyn, but they do cover all 5 boroughs. So they will go to you. They have, it's an older van. It might need some repairs, but they do have their mobile, device delivery van that they also do outreach events at. And it's a great group of staff. They've been 3D printing for quite a while. I do want to emphasize that because they are in the boroughs, because there's so many people there, it does take them sometimes a little bit to get back to people. So if you do reach out to them, um, and you don't hear back for a day or two, give them a second to respond. But if they do, if they are delayed for whatever reason, I'm happy to follow up. And I'll put my email in the chat. I know it was in the PowerPoint, but I'll put it in the chat as well. But that's them. So TechWorks out of Adapt Community Network. They actually are the only trade center that has a CNC machine. So they are working on, so a 3D printer builds things up out of filament or, to put it together, whereas the CNC, it cuts apart, different materials in order to create a device. So they're experimenting with new things all the time.
Now, this question is totally out of curiosity for me because we don't have anything in the Q&A box and we have 6.5 minutes here. What assistive tech is on the horizon right now?
The biggest thing on a national level that we're keeping our eye on is AI. There's a lot of benefits to AI for people, wherever they are at in their lives, employment wise, medical wise. It's kind of the Wild West. For some people, it's great. For others, there's concerns about autonomy and people's voices getting muted depending on what the AI is saying. But for others, it's a great tool. So we're watching to see how that progresses. But there's constantly, adjustments and adaptations to technology. I know that there's, when it comes to speech recognition, we go to JAWS, or not JAWS, we go to Dragon Naturally Speaking a lot of the time, which doesn't work for a lot of people. If they have, a speech need, when they're trying to use it, it can be difficult. But I think it's Google is working on a new app or a new software that's still in development. I could Google it, but off the top of my head, it's new and it's hopefully will address a lot of those concerns. That's what's off the top of my head. But April, you're on the, in the trenches, as we say. So what kinds of things are you seeing?
Yeah, it's that. It's a lot of AI stuff and a lot of softwares and apps for different devices. A lot of our communication apps um, are on the electronics. Gaming,
Gate
adaptive
electric, like,
gaming is huge right now.
mm-hmm.
We've kind of all here talked about potentially like looking into that a little bit further, but that's become a huge thing over the last few years.
As a gamer, I follow several people who play games using quad sticks and using all kinds of cool stuff. And like we're talking like they're playing like Elden Ring and Cuphead using devices that it's absolutely out of this world. One thing that I do want to highlight very quickly that's a newer thing that I'm trying to tell as many people about as I can. There are new advancements in communication software about bodily autonomy. So traditionally, communication apps haven't had specific words on body parts because nobody wants to talk about, more intimate details. But if you have like an infection or something that you're not able to communicate, it can be very painful and uncomfortable. But through advocacy, partially through some of our staff at TRAID, there are new things, that new communication and words and symbols for specific body parts to communicate when somebody they're in pain or they have a concern, or maybe somebody that they don't know has been, inappropriate with them. So these are new features that are hot off the presses. Tell your friends, these are things for things like, oh my goodness, I'm going to Google them as I saw another question came through.
Which you teed up perfectly, and it comes from LaQuisha asking, how can people stay updated on the advancements in assistive tech?
Proloco to Go. That was so like devices or like apps like Proloco to Go, which are a really big communication device out there for alternative augmented communication. These are the types of programs that are having these new words for, words that we might have like a cutesy name for it, or like, oh, that's a private area, whatever. I know that's not the purpose of this webinar, but it is important to communicate, especially for like teenagers or for people that are, using AAC that might not know it's out there.
Yeah.
But yes, if you want to stay up to date on the newest, latest, and greatest that's out there, I would stay in touch with your local trade center. We do a lot of outreach through communication for, with amazing people like Blaze. We've done, we've done meetings for different state agencies, for different organizations and community groups. So I would say, stay in touch with us. And then also, those links and those resources that I had in our PowerPoint, many of them have listservs that, they'll have stuff that comes out constantly. Check out AT3 from time to time. They also have great resources. And RESNA, that I don't know what it stands for. I know acronym free zones are such a pain. RESNA is the rehabilitative something. So assistive technology. It's a big AT wing of, resources out there. They're another great place to check out. They certify AT professionals. But if you're ever like, if there's something for that, shoot us an email and we'll point you in the right direction. And if we don't know, we'll find someone that does.
Okay. We have 2 minutes. So any last questions or final thoughts? We have enough time for those before we go our separate ways here. This has really been a really great and informative presentation. As Melinda, I've heard you do these sort of presentations a few times, and April, I'm glad to hear you chipping in as you're able to do so. So really, really appreciate all of the work that the entire TRAID team does throughout the state, because it's a great program and it's too well kept of a secret, and that needs to change.
That's I've been saying for 8 years. 8 years, 6 years. I did not go to school for math. But I've learned about TRAID as an MSc, and I wish I had known about it sooner. So yes, tell your friends. And if you do happen to be out of state and need AT and you're not sure, shoot me an email. We're happy to point you in the right direction. Yep, I'm going to edit the PowerPoint just to update one quick slide, and then I'll send it to Blaze to distribute to whoever was on the call today.
Great. Yes. And I will, yep, the slides and the recording will be made available. And once I have the updated slides from you, Melinda, I will, I'll make everything available. So we are at the top of the hour, so we've got to go. So thank you, April and Melinda, very much, as well as everyone for attending. I will also, in the follow-up email, send a survey so you can share your thoughts and potential webinar ideas for the future. So with that, thank you all so much and have a great rest of your Thursday.
Thank you, everybody.